Hello there, my name's Gary Sims and this is Gary Explains. So the new MacBooks with the M3 processor have started to arrive in the hands of consumers, which means we now have some benchmarking numbers. So in this video I want to look at the performance of the M3, the M3 Pro and the M3 Max, which should help you in your purchase decision and also help you to understand whether you should upgrade if you already have an existing Mac product. Okay, so if you want to find out more, please let me explain. Okay, M3, M3 Pro, M3 Max, what is the performance? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. So just a quick refresh about the new M3 line. I've got other videos about this here on this channel, but there are three basic chips at the moment. There could be a fourth soon. The M3, the M3 Pro, the M3 Max, they all use the same CPU and GPU, just the bigger ones add more of them. They just keep adding cores, keep adding CPU cores, keep adding GPU cores, and actually, if you look at the die shots here, you can actually see very similar sections across all the chips. It's just scaled up from one to the other. That's not an easy thing to do. I'm not saying that's just like, but that's what it is in practice. Okay, so a quick reminder of the M family. The M1 was the first one that came out. This was in 2020, and you've got the Vanilla, the Pro, and the Max. There's also an Ultra, and you get different CPU combinations. Basically, the Vanilla ones, you get 4+4 across all three, the M1, the M2, the M3. The Pro, they'll give you some more CPU cores and more GPU cores, and then the Max give you even more CPU cores, even more GPU cores, and then the Ultra, basically, they stick two Maxes together and just double everything. So we're now looking at the M3 and see what the performance is of this new generation. So what Apple were claiming is that the efficiency cores in the M3 are 30% faster than the M2 and 50% faster than the M1, and the performance cores are 15% faster than the M2 and 30% faster than the M1. Overall, this is what we're looking at: 25 billion transistors in the smallest one, 92 billion transistors in the big one, built on 3 nanometers, and here are those core configurations as I was showing earlier on. Okay, so here are the Geekbench 6 numbers just for the M3. So we can see that the single threaded score is basically the same. It's the same CPU core. Doesn't matter whether you've got one of them or 20 of them, you're basically going to get the same speed for a single threaded, and that's what, 31, 36. Slightly faster here, it seems, in the MacBook Pro 14 with the M3 Max. Maybe a slight tweak in the thermals there that allow it just a bit of a higher speed. And what you can see in the multi-threaded scores is basically that you add more cores and you're going to get more performance in multi-threaded. Now, of course, again, that's not an easy thing because obviously there's battery life to be considered and thermals to be considered. But when you do that, you get an increase from 11,000 to 14,000 to 21,000. That is quite a remarkable number, actually, as we go across here. So what does that look like overall? Well, as we can see, the M1, the M2 and the M3 are the slowest in the sense they're just the 8-core version, the vanilla versions, but of course the M3 is greater than the M2, which is greater than the M1. In fact, there's a 21% uplift overall from the M2 to the M3 in single threaded scores, and that's about right because it was, what does it say, 15% and 30%. Well, of course, it's a mixture of performance cores and efficiency cores, so you add all up together and you get a 21% uplift overall. So that's not to be disregarded. That's a good uplift in single threaded score. Now, the next thing to note is over here in the multi-threaded scores, you've basically got this block of processors that are in the same ballpark. 11,800, almost 12,000, just over 12,000, just over 12,000, and that's basically the M3. So that's really interesting. The M3 is nipping at the heels in multi-core score of what the M1 Max and the M1 Pro were giving. Probably the difference here why the Max is before is this is a 14-inch MacBook Pro, this is a 16-inch MacBook Pro. So again, maybe a slight difference in thermals there. So basically the multi-threaded score, this is just nipping at the heels here of the M1 Max and the M1 Pro. But then there's this second bunch of processors here that are all 14,000 and something, and that's the M2 Pro, the M3 Pro and the M2 Max. So the M3 Pro kind of gives you the same multi-threaded score as the M2 Pro and the M2 Max. So that's an interesting point. If you're thinking about buying a new machine, then, do you buy an M2, maybe get a bit cheaper? Do you buy an M3 and hope you're going to get more, support over a longer term? Do you buy second hand? These are some of the questions you have to look at, because the M3 Pro isn't necessarily an outright winner. Compared to the M3, it is. The M3, you just want to get that if you're going to choose an M1 or an M2. The M3 is going to do the job for you really nicely. But the M3 Pro doesn't necessarily give you much more than the M2 Pro or the M2 Max. But the M3 Max, look at this. This is 47% uplift from the M2 Max in terms of multi-threaded score. Look at that, 14,000, 21,000, absolutely huge. So if you have got the money and you are looking for a CPU, remember this is all CPU, haven't touched on the GPUs in this. This is the CPU intensive work. Then the M3 Max is, well, clearly brilliant. Okay, so there we have it, the performance numbers of the new M3 family. Are you a MacBook owner? Will you be upgrading to a new M3 based one? Will you be switching from Windows to the Mac? Love to hear your comments below. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you like these kind of videos, then I invite you to stick around, join the community by subscribing to the channel. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.